football, many Nigerians, after last night, would be ruining the fact that why do we have to go this way? Indeed, someone this morning actually said we should have first stayed with what the president said, stay away from football for 2 years. Maybe that would have done a lot better. But then, in the house today is our in-house sports analyst and also newspaper editor, Sun newspaper editor, Mr. George Aluo. Welcome.
It's my pleasure.
You're laughing. I mean, you lost to Senegal and you're laughing.
It's an unfortunate situation, and we just cannot but laugh given the backdrop of the fact that our football is on its lowest ebb ever. Lowest ebb from under 17 to the senior national team level. We have lost on all fronts, and I think it calls for a total overhaul of the entire system.
When you say overhaul of the entire system, is it the coaches or the NFF?
No, those of us who are stakeholders in this business of sports and football in particular know that the problem is not about coaching. It definitely goes beyond coaching. Yesterday, we even had a situation where Stephen Keshi, the new Super Eagles manager, was told to work more closely with Austin Eguavoen. The same scenario that played out when Christian Chukwu was told to work with Yukeri Auche during the Olympic qualifier for female in Cameroon. At the end of the day, you discover that this fire brigades approach won't take us anywhere. Like strategists will say, those who plan bleed less in battle. But once you don't plan, you lose on all fronts. And that is what is happening to our football at this moment. We are losing on all fronts because we have failed to plan. We are losing on all fronts because we have refused to tell ourselves the gospel truth. And until we begin to do that, we know that the problems are beyond coaching. The next thing we do now is they come back, they fire us in Eguavoen, bring another coach, and the same vicious cycle of failure will continue until we now go back to the root of the matter. You have to do a proper diagnosis of what the problems of football are, and then be able to begin to solve them.
Okay. Most people, there are those who believe that in any situation where things are not working is a leadership problem. When you say the leadership problem here, where do we begin from?
We have to begin from the glass house. The glass house is in charge of football administration in our country. And like you said, when there's a problem, you look at the leadership. Because once the leadership is not doing well, you expect that the followership will not do well. Even if you have to go back to the biblical days, people decided to call the followers of Christ Christians because they saw them doing what Christ did, but he went about doing good, isn't it? So the same thing follows in our football. Once the leadership is bad, you now discover that the players will not do well, the fans will not do well, and everything will fall apart. And that is exactly the problems that we have in our football at the moment. We've gotten it wrong administratively. Some cabal are holding on tenaciously to power. And at the end of the day, it is affecting Nigerian football. And what we are now getting is a vicious cycle of failure. We've gotten it wrong on all fronts. So we need to come back home, look at the problems. And even as we speak, there is this issue of reforms in our football. And even before the reports are submitted today, people are already kicking against it, that we don't need reforms. But if you look at the kind of results we are posting on the field of play, you now know that we really need reforms in our football.
Is it a question of reforms or a question of a total, as you said earlier, total overhaul?
Yes, and that total overhaul you're talking about will not come if you don't have reforms, if you don't put reforms in place. And the question people should be asking the Honorable Minister of Sports, you said that the President at a point said, yes, we should we should stay away from football for 2 years. As it is now, we have played ourselves out of football for 2 years on our own. It is no longer President Jonathan intervening this time.
Yeah.
Because we are doing the wrong things, we have played ourselves out, and in fact, we may even play ourselves outside more than 2 years, because the way things are going, if we don't do a turnaround of things, we will not even qualify for the Nations Cup in South Africa 2013. Just go and mark my words. The way we are playing at the moment, I don't see us beating Rwanda. Even the two friendlies that Stephen Keshi played, we struggled against Botswana at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin. We were only lucky against Zambia at at the Ahmadu Bello Stadium in Kaduna, we were completely outplayed. And I don't see how Stephen Keshi will build a new team in between competitions, between now and January, February, when we start the Nations Cup qualifier. So if we lose to Rwanda, and then we begin to fumble during the World Cup qualifier, Brazil 2014, we'll continue with this vicious cycle of failure until we begin to ask ourselves fundamental questions and begin to take proper measures that will reposition our football. And that is why I said that at this point in time, the Minister of Sports must act. Because we cannot continue this way.
Okay, now the Minister of Sport acting, that will be like interfering in football, and that's against FIFA statutes.
Yeah, but we cannot say, why do we need to fear FIFA intervention any longer? We are not playing any other competition. With the exit of the dream team from the Olympics, which other competition are we looking up to? So we cannot say because FIFA will do something and then we'll fold our arms and our football will continue to go down. Because now the next thing is we'll come back home, sack Austin Eguavon, get another coach. The same coach you bring, the new coach you bring will equally fail. So those who are sacking Eguavon should first of all sack themselves.
All right, Mr. Aluo, yesterday we had a guest in the studio who made a suggestion as regards academy, building feeder teams. He said there should be a statute, there should be an injunction, so to speak, that every league club, every local league club should have a feeder team, an under-16 team that feeds the team. And I asked the question, I said, should the NFF not have an academy that feeds the national team?
They do. They have an academy that they are putting in place, although it's not really functional because we don't have the proper structures in place at the glasshouse. The technical department is not functioning. It's only functioning on paper. The youth department, you may have a one-man department and all that. And even at the club level, the same problem that is playing out at the national team level is the same problem that is playing out at the club level because most of these clubs are government parastatals. You'll discover that what you have as feeder teams at the club levels are people who are in their 30s. And that is why you cannot graduate. None of the professional league clubs, for instance, has a structure where people from their feeder team will graduate to their main team. Because most of these club officials use the feeder team as a kind of a structure with which they favor one or two players, paddy arrangement, like one of my friends will say. A situation where you say you have a feeder team, and the same feeder team is made up of players who are in their 25, 26, 27, 28. And then what that means is that you are making a mockery of feeder team structure. So even at the club level, we are getting it wrong. The so-called home-based players that we even want to put in place to take over, most of them are aging. And we use players who are not within the age limit for age group competitions. And the effect is this. If you look at the same set of players that we use for under 17, under 20, under 23 and all that, they don't get to graduate to play for the national teams. What that means is that we are not using players who are in their right ages. And I know that the Sports Commission, for instance, has set up a committee that has to do with I think that academicals, where they say for you to play for under 17, you must be in school.
Okay.
Because even the MRI thing has failed us. We discovered that even with the MRI thing, we still cheat.